Good day, my beautiful and musical friends. Let's just practice, but different things today. Not just skills or articulation. We need to get better at processing and tracking. That's right. So, what would we want to do then? Maybe let's take the time, remove all the processing. There's not much going on anyway. Make little scratch vocal, and then we can see about our gain staging. Like already got this input here. If I cough, of course, gonna be hitting, I don't know, -6 or something, even 0. But that's not real volume. It's a lot of air just being pushed even through the pop shield. But say, if we have a normal and relaxed distance to our microphone, probably sometimes depends on genre. And also if you are using analog model plugins, then you might want to actually be really much more careful with your tracking levels. You might have to pull them down later. And also, like every DAW is now, I don't know, 32-bit float point. Like I'm not a computer scientist. Long story short, there's, in regards to working in the box before we export, we kind of have infinite dynamic range. So, and the noise floor is so minuscule. There's absolutely no reason at all to be tracking super hot. Like I should be dialing down already. Let's bypass this compressor, for instance. Like I have a Rode NT1A, pretty standard microphone. It goes into my, hold up, I'll show you. Maybe that's better to see. So, oh god damn it, this camera, it makes me wild. So we just have this basic microphone. It's a good microphone. I got no complaints. I think it's good bang for the buck for the bedroom producer. It goes into another bedroom producer classic. A Focusrite interface. Gain is halfway up. You can see it blinking. We're not clipping or anything unless I cough or am super close miking. And then we go into Reason. God damn it, this camera. If it just touches, if it just wiggles a little bit in this USB port, it just falls apart. Where's my camera now? Okay. So in all the time that was pretty good. I've been moving around and whatnot, so the input was probably pretty bouncy. Let's say that, right? The input must have been kind of bouncy. If we're gonna look back at this waveform, we can probably see there is like, we can see there is really a lot of dynamic range. Like this is the kind of like the average level. Here I probably coughed or touched the microphone. And if we really look, we can see we clipped here. Could even go and look how much actually. Not too much, but still. We don't want to be clipping ever. Like, especially not while tracking. When you are tracking, you want to record the best possible source that is available to you. Take the time. Try different miking positions. Maybe if you have the choice, use a different microphone. Is your room treated? My room is not treated. This microphone is a bad choice. What's with this camera now? It just doesn't want to function properly. One second. This should do, I hope. Yeah, that's working now. Just need to be careful not to wiggle on this cable. So while we are tracking, we want to make sure that we are not clipping, because we can never get rid of this distortion. That's just sad. Also, if you are an artist and you're working with other people, you don't want to be sending your mix engineer tracks that are clipping everywhere or every now and then. It is just bad for everybody. It's bad for you because you can't get the best possible result. Maybe your vocal was amazing, but we can't know because we just hear the clipping a lot. And that just gets cumbersome, I think. Okay, so when recording, make sure you have a healthy and balanced incoming signal. Maybe if you know you're kind of that artist that likes to move around because you're feeling it so much, if you can help yourself, try to minimize that movement. If it's not possible, still try and maybe use a compressor already on the way in, so you can already smooth out a little bit of the performance of, like, say, now I'm not speaking into the microphone, I'm speaking on this left side of the microphone. If I was singing and I'm going around this microphone, we get all the variety of tone, but also all the variety of volume, which we maybe not want. There are purposes for that, but it should be really intentional. Like, say you want to do something close miking, you want to have your voice going super boomy. You can use a proximity effect. Like, if I speak from here, that's pretty far off, you know? I'm also kind of silent now. You could see, if I just try to speak relaxed from here, we are running into a reason just from the focus right. I don't know, around about 20, maybe negative 18. Like, they are all just rules of thumb, but they have their good reasons. So if you're new to tracking and recording, maybe a good range for you to be in general for a static mix or even while tracking, try to aim that your incoming signals are in an area of negative 20 to 10 at the most part. This is an average, right? Maybe can have peaks here and there that are hotter. Maybe you have a peak level of, I don't know, say if I just coughed here, negative 7, 8, and that's already a super loud signal. Say I'd be coming in and I was gonna try to sing, damn, I don't have any vocals in my brain at the moment. Fly me to the moon and let me dance among the stars. I wanna know what life is like on Jupiter and Mars. And I was moving in and out. I moved the microphone, whatnot. We can see clipping there too. So long story short, want to make sure we can get a more consistent level. Because with the processing that we want to apply later, it could get difficult to do processing. Say we want to we want to do more to it, and all these layers, they add up. If we're already spiking, we have no headroom left for processing, which is unfortunate, because we might need that room to do some more work on these vocals. So I'll try to be at the same distance now to this microphone. I'll try to make sure that I'm speaking into this microphone pretty straight, not moving around. And this is pretty much the ballpark where I want to be. I want to be at, I don't know, -18, -14, 12, with peaks, maybe 10, -6, maybe ever so often at the most, maybe -3. But really, -18, 12, 14-ish, with peaks around 10, plus minus 2, 3 decibels. That is a good range to start with. Like this all is not set in stone. We just want to make sure we get a good, clean signal that leaves room for processing. Okay. Then let's look quickly for, what was that again? It's in my head for some reason. Fly Me to the Moon. Let's just look at the first bar. Fly me to the moon. I want these lyrics just quick. I should know them by heart, but I don't know what's wrong with me. Oh, I didn't know he did it with Count Basie. Okay. So let's do a couple of takes, different distances, and then we can see what we can do with that. So let's just try randomly. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. And let me see. Hey, there's an N. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. And let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. My voice cracking away. Probably need to do that again. But you get your vocal comms, you know? So let's try to do that again. Maybe we're gonna hop into a different block and call it Fly Me to the Moon scratch vocal, so we can gauge at what we are doing. Like, everyone is unique. Every sound source is unique. Your voice is unique. And so all these are just average good starting points. Like, let me take off the slow pass, for instance. And then you can also see why it would probably be good not to use a condenser unless you have a treated room or a good screen or whatnot, or a super, super silent fan. Hush, and then you can maybe even hear, but you will definitely able to see my fan and the room noise. This little area where the mouse is hovering right now, that's the fan. I have no idea what it is getting at below 40 hertz. I don't even hear that. At least not at that level. Be aware for these things when you're tracking your vocals. It will just introduce unnecessary data that you don't need, because you can't hear it. But all these signals accumulate. So we're gonna filter that out. All right. And we didn't change too much about this tone, I think. Like 97 is, I think, an okay cut. Could maybe go lower. Like, see, now there's much more space, and I could move this filter about, and then we can see when it loses too much. For me, if I do it simultaneously, it doesn't work as well because I still hear myself through my body in this room, even with closed back headphones on. So when you're tracking and producing yourself, you probably want to do these moves after you have your test recording because you will have a very biased experience for your ears, because that's one of the main reasons why it is so weird and off-putting at first when you do hear your voice on a recording, because naturally we never hear our voice without all the vibration and induction traveling through our bones and body. That is one of the biggest reasons why it's like, nah, that's not my voice. Ooh, do I really sound like that? Yeah, we do. Get used to it. Listen to yourself a lot on playback so you get a feel for what it sounds like if you heard yourself as a different person. So let's try our little take from Fly Me to the Moon and then start to apply some mild processing just to make it tidy, get rid of maybe problem frequencies, enhance frequencies that we do like, look at the dynamic range, and then we can start thinking about a vocal chain to start tracking in a not so dry and heartless, lifeless box that we do have in our DAWs. Alrighty, I talked long. Let's track something. Fly me to the moon. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. And let me see what spring is like. God, voice fading out. It doesn't have to be perfect. We want to just gauge a good roundabout. This is so we have probably a better feel later to do a better vocal. So bear in mind, I'm not really a vocalist. I do like singing, but keys is for me where it's at. Anyway. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. And let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. We need more space because I don't want to be comping in here. So it's not so annoying to be flipping through default comping stacks. Let's do this one more time. Without me talking unnecessarily. Okay. Also make sure if you don't have the vocals in your head, make sure you know your vocals, because I was leaning to that side, speaking away from the microphone. Now I put it to my other screen, so if I need to read, my mouth is directed at the capsule, which is important. Unless you have a specific reason to direct that capsule angled or somewhat differently to get that tone that you're looking for. But in general, try to make sure you have good posture, you're keeping about the same distance, if you can help it. And if we can't, and even if we do, we will see that we can compress the vocal later so we get less of a roller coaster in dynamic range in our waveform. So again, one scratch vocal and then we start processing. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. And we're coming in super hot here. I see that. I had a problem with breathing. If you're a vocalist and if you smoke, try not to. Unless you really want to have that super raspy voice all the time. Also, you need to make sure that you are hydrated much better, because when you smoke, probably your mouth will be drier. That makes tracking annoying because you will have more mouse clicks and whatnot. You will have more audible breaths for sure. Yeah, just 2 cents. Okay, let's listen back to this. It's not super good, but let's try to do something with it anyway. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Okay, so far so good. So when we are listening back to our tracked vocals that are still super dry, like there's no processing happening at this point so far. Oh, sorry. I lied. I forgot about this compressor. Let's bypass this compressor. We have a de-esser in this chain, so it takes a bit away from the sibilants. Let's listen to this again without this compressor. I forgot I had it in there already. Let's put this back to the one. Zoom in on our waveform. Want to take snap off, and we want to be fading in because we made that cut. Let's listen to it. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. All right, let's listen to this again. So, I'm sorry. Oh, before I forgot. There was no processing except the de-esser and the compressor, and we will bypass also the de-esser now. Maybe the sibilants will be a little bit harsh. Sometimes I feel like I have a lisp, or the same thing that I just said about smoking, also with coffee. If you are a really true vocalist, yes, I do love my coffee and cigarettes. Probably I'm going to name my debut album like that. Very imaginative, I know, super creative. I just love my coffee and cigarettes, which is retarded. Not the coffee, but the cigarettes for sure. Anyway, I'll shut up and then play back the first 2 lines, and then we will slowly start enabling either on, or maybe even both. The channel strip of the SSL in Reason, we can use the compression here. We will be using the EQ for sure. And to make that high pass filter to get rid of too much low end rumbling, all the stuff below 40 Hertz for sure, that weird fan noise. There's absolutely no reason for it to be there. None. Okay. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Okay. Now we will start metering again. Everything bypassed. I need to mute my mic so I'm not manipulating this reading. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Okay, you can probably already see and hear. I try to hover over or increase the visibility. If we compare the Ulean loudness meter, the true peak max, in our channel and on the master, they are different. Why? Because I forgot one other thing. I am usually already, even if like a completely empty template, almost always, probably the first thing that I'll be doing is enabling the master bus compressor and tracking, producing, and mixing into it. So we can also bypass this compressor, and then you see. Also, VoxB is absolutely dry. There's nothing. There's nothing going on there. So let's bypass the master bus compressor. Also, let's get two things for this. Two. We want to have we want to be metering our input signal here and on Ulean, so we can compare the level we hit the master bus. That's the way we're going out, and we can monitor our individual channel. So let's bypass this compressor, and then we can see and compare. Let's see and compare the dry incoming signal of our vocals and compare the channel meter reading to our master output with a compressor enabled and disabled. Let's see and compare the dry incoming signal of our vocals and compare the channel meter reading to our master output with a compressor enabled and disabled. Let's see and compare the dry incoming signal of our vocals and compare the channel meter reading to our master output Let me play among the stars. Let's see and compare the dry incoming signal of our vocals and compare the channel meter reading to our master output with a compressor enabled and disabled. Let's see and compare the dry incoming signal of our vocals and compare the channel meter reading to our master output with a compressor enabled and disabled. Let's see and compare the dry incoming signal of our vocals and compare the channel meter reading to our master output with a compressor enabled and disabled. Let's see and compare the dry incoming signal of our vocals and compare the channel meter reading to our master output with a compressor enabled and disabled. Let's see and compare the dry incoming signal of our vocals and compare the channel meter reading to our master output okay. So we can already see we have a difference of 2-3 dB just alone from the master bus compressor. Let's look at the settings of this master bus compressor. On default, the threshold is at about negative 15-ish. Got a 10 millisecond attack, fairly long release, 0.6 seconds, gentle ratio 2:1, some makeup gain of roughly 2.87, yeah, but roughly 3 dB. And if we do look here, we can see if I do cough or speak a little bit louder, and we look at this, let me make that bigger. If we look at that needle moving, you can't see much, but if I cough and we put in more signal, we see about maybe 3 to 4 decibel of gain reduction so far. All right. Let's go back to our scratch vocal here and listen to it. Then we will put back the mild processing that we had so far. So in this channel so far, what's happening? We're tracking our dry as vocals in here. We're metering the gain. And we have the ESA here. This master bus compressor insert, same like on the other master bus, but I love to put it in channels too. I think it's a great compressor. Let's enable that slowly. And then we compare gain and tone and see what's what. We can also render these different settings and compare the waveform. Like really, it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of really good channels out there. I need to start really listing all these resources that I'm taking this knowledge from. There's really so many amazing musicians and producers out on YouTube that are sharing years and years, decades worth of knowledge for free. Lately, I've been very fond of Simply Mixing with Sarah. If you don't know her, she BBC trained audio engineer, excellent, very well prepared lectures about audio engineering. And what I really love, if people don't try to sell you stuff, but they want to teach you methods. Like I used to be a chef for a long time, and the one thing that you don't want to do is you don't just want to learn a recipe by heart, because why? Then you can't improvise. Don't learn the recipe, learn the method that creates that recipe, because then you are free to do whatever you want with it. Okay, we're going to listen to these two little blips of scratch recording from me. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me. Yeah, okay. So let's bring some stuff back in here. We already have this low pass there. That's probably okay. Maybe put a high pass filter later there too. I'm quite sure we will. But for now, bringing in the de-esser and the compressor insert in our Vox chain, and I might couple it with the SSL style channel strip compressor too. So that's going to be hit first. So the vocals are coming in from our mic to the interface. It goes from top to bottom down, right? Okay. To the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Okay, so what did we do so far? We enabled the channel strip compressor, gentle ratio 2:1, just to make it a little bit more consistent. So it's not jumping about too much. Next thing we had, let's bypass the EQ, just the filters for now. We're taking, or we're cutting here at around 100. It will depend on your voice or the source that you're tracking. So don't just go and try to copy settings. Try to understand the methods. Then you can apply them freely. Next thing that I probably want to do is I want to remove some muddiness that will be probably, at least from our voice or many voices, in the lower mids, round 3, something in between here, this area, from 200 to 600. There's a lot of stuff that is often not so great, that we don't necessarily want, and that doesn't really add any musical, yeah, it's just, you know, the muddy lower part. Let's just work on that a little bit, dip something out of it, and then we will try to find maybe a nice place where we can find some good presence in our vocals that might be living around this area, somewhere north from 1.3K, somewhere maybe in between 2.6 and 5K, and then we might add some air for a little bit more shine and clarity. Okay, I'm gonna shut up and bring this back. Also, what I'll be bringing back in will be the next compressor in here. Also pretty similar, just more threshold, same ratio, same release as the master bus, and also makeup gain. And then I have the de-esser afterwards. And there's a good reason why I put that de-esser last in this chain. If you are using a compressor with makeup gain, I'm sure you will for the most part, when you bring all the levels back up, what will be more audible is all the quiet parts in your audio. And breaths or mouse clicks, all these little noises, they will be so much more present. So it kind of could make sense maybe to put a de-esser before and after a compressor, or after a compressor. It's not too long ago, and I feel silly that I didn't think about it myself, because it's kind of like obvious. The sibilance is often some of the quieter signals, and the compressor will make them so much stronger. Test it out for yourself and see what you like better. But I've come to put my de-esser after my compressor, so my broad up sibilance can be put back down. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. I try not to leave this too long on loop. Let's find the word stars and loop that and put a de-esser on it. And then we do AB of the peak meter on that sibilance, okay? Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. The stars. The star, the star, the star. So we can clearly hear a lot of these S's. Like it almost feels like I have a lisp. Maybe I do. Remember what I said earlier about good hydration and maybe not drinking coffee if you're a vocalist when you're about to track, or smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. Unless you really want to be that jazz musician, you know? Anyway. I'm gonna hush again and then bring the compressor in and the de-esser too, and then we see what that sounds like and if we are more happy with that. Where do we need to cut and start? The star, star, the among the lol. Wrong one. I'm stupid. Let's do this again real quick. Sorry. I don't want to cut in the audio, so. Star, 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 star. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, stars, stars. So these S's are super loud. Let's get rid of them. The star, 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 star. So you can really feel, if you isolate stuff like that, it is super piercing. And if you have a compressor and you have some reverb, it all lingers around, and all these lower level signals, they come back. Maybe you don't notice them for a while, but they'll come back. They accumulate real fast. Okay, I'm gonna try to shut up and be a little bit more in flow. So what we're attempting now is just our scratch vocal. We want to make it sound a little bit more polished so we can actually start really tracking. We will be looking for low-end rumble and filter that out with a high-pass filter, like we already did here. As we can see, might as well do this on this channel because, well, why not? There's no need why you should be listening to my PC fan and all that stuff, if you can even hear that. Certainly not when I'm talking, but yeah. So what is in here? Nothing so far. We're hitting this round about where I want to be hitting. If I speak normally, I want to be around this range. Negative 18, 12, 14, 13-ish. Peaks with me coughing at about maybe -6 or so. Or if I were to belt, which I'm not, maybe also around 10, -6, -3 at the very most. But we probably don't want to go there. So this channel could also benefit from a de-esser. Just because I do voice over here, it doesn't mean you need to listen to me and my lisp. Okay? So And isn't that much better already? Like from the get-go, unfortunately, I cannot tell you exactly how much makeup gain it has. It has built-up makeup gain, and also you only have two settings: fast compressor, fast and slow. I think you can hear the difference in level pretty clearly. Hello, 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 hello. Let me not mute. Let me get this camera away because probably don't need that. Or actually, I could move this. I mean, it's not like it has to be on the bottom left side, right? So bypassing this, even while I'm speaking, I can clearly hear it. And you are probably able to hear it much better because you don't hear my voice like how I hear my voice when all the vibration is also traveling through my body. So let's enable this compressor too. Maybe we can bring the ratio down. Doesn't need to be 4:1, 4:1, 2:1, something gentle. I mean, it's just for talking. Maybe we can shorten this time a little bit. Maybe. I'm gonna do that there too, I guess. And now let's get back to the scratch vocal and see what we can achieve. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see. I'm quite sure you can hear how boxy that is around this area, like 320, whatnot. We're gonna be dipping that out. See what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon. Okay, we don't do too much. We're taking a couple of dBs out. Fairly wide Q though, because I think this region can benefit. Of course, you're trying to look for the most annoying frequency in there, but it will extend a little bit left and right too. So, yeah. All right, let's continue. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like On Jupiter and Mars, fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Just at different settings, fast attack, slow attack. Of course, if we do it now in solo, it doesn't make as much sense because it will probably depend on the context. Listen, while we can solo stuff, do not spend too much time in solo land. You will be going back and forth changing stuff when you go back from solo and listen to the rest of the arrangement and what you have. Set your compressor really for the most part, unless you're really going in to do some fine tuning, looking for problems, EQing and all that, and compression, do it in context. Right now, we don't have context. We might go about and change stuff later. But for now, we just want to find a good starting spot so we don't feel too ashamed of our vocals and we can start to lay down something and track it well. And in mixing, we have more options. But still, even when tracking, you want to be happy so you can be performing better. If you have a dry signal and a dry template, there's no reverb, you hear the harshness of your own voice. It will just be very demotivating. You will not be super happy. So do yourself a favor, make a vocal tracking template for yourself. I mean, make it maybe for different styles if you do different styles, but probably you are not jumping about a million styles. And even if you do, your voice has a certain range. There will be certain frequencies where you always have too much bass, too little bass, too much treble, or whatnot. And knowing that will just speed up your workflow if you're creating these templates and if you do the ear training. Maybe if you're not a mixer audio engineer, like I'm the self-taught pianist, or I like noodling keys a lot. I do like to sing sometimes, but this could get boring if you are expecting this day is going to be just about chords, because it's not. It's about making yourself comfortable tracking and producing yourself as good as you can. We don't have to be Grammy Award winning mixing engineers, but I feel like every musician that is recording or tracking should know at least enough vocabulary so he can talk to his engineer or producer. Like, you don't have to know it all. It's not about name dropping. But if you are really into music, it doesn't hurt to learn a couple of words about maybe the fundamentals, what a compressor is, what it does, basic EQing things, maybe to know how certain frequency bands are called. So when you are going to sit down with your mixing engineer or producer, you can tell them, hey, if you didn't already do that, can I have a little bit more air? Or I feel like when I've been tracking myself at home in this region of about, I don't know, 2.6 to 3.4K, I find there's really good presence. Could you boost that a little bit? That's all. And it's not hard to learn these words. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. See, when I bypass this, I mean, it's a little biased because I still have the microphone open on the other channel, right? Where I'm monitoring or where you hear me speaking what I'm doing. Let's listen still back, and I will be enabling and de-abling just this little cut in this 320 area, where usually many sound sources will have parts that are not all as usable and that will not be good to have in there as they stack up. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Okay, real boxy there. And it doesn't have to be perfect, really. Mars, fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let's find something where we find a bit more presence. Let's find the nice bits in here. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Fly me to the moon. Let me. So far, it is just really a super dry template. We cannot even say it's a vocal. It is just maybe the lead vocal, or could be any kind of vocal. It is about ear training today for me. And finding a good starting place for vocal tracking and processing. Like, I'm not the greatest vocalist. I play keys mostly. But sometimes I do like to sing. And this is just so we can start creating a little template where we feel content that it is not all terrible. The levels are good. The compression will be good for the most part and whatnot. Just some really sound basic audio engineering, like compression, reverb, de-essing. No great shenanigans, nothing fancy. Just really the bread and butter stuff. Play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter. And this is also just a quick and dirty scratch vocal. Like, this is not going to be the vocal that's going to make a recording or whatnot. This is just so we have some data that we can use to adjust all the parameters that we will be using probably. I mean, it's good if you can make your scratch vocal sound or perform as if you were doing the final recording. I mean, the better the source that you can generate or track, the easier the work will be. This kind of mindset of we can fix it in post, this is going to be a very cumbersome experience. Sooner or later, it will bite us in the bottom. Okay, let's find some presence, and then we can start thinking about parallel chains, harmonic saturation with tape. No, that was me. I was out of breath. And I was thinking very hard about how the phrase actually went. That's why I was going up like significantly. Like I say, I'm just a noob vocalist. And I didn't have a clear plan. And while I was doing this take, I even waited a little bit thinking, I don't have a good image of what this vocal run should sound like. That's why it is so out of place. And my voice is even cracking. I'm not even as this dynamic absolutely off. I think I'm losing pitch a lot. Spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Yeah, that's not in key. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Maybe we cut it there. It will be a little bit boring at first because we don't want to be listening and deafening our ears. So we might as well just leave this loop on for longer so we have at least some time for our ears to recalibrate and hear maybe a change. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Also, do not spend too much time, unless you already really know what you're looking for. I kind of know what I'm looking for. I've been EQing my vocals often enough. I know it's going to be somewhere around here. But if you have this habit also of sweeping around, don't go looking for a problem. Think about where you think the problem is and start in that area, because when we go sweeping around making weird ass movements, everything will sound like it's a problem because we just created it. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Okay, before we get too tired, this loop is too short to be listening to it. I should have tried to make a longer thing. But now we can already hear, like, I'm going to do this all bypassed once, I guess. So we hear the dry, absolutely dry. I even disable master bus compression, and here too. And let's turn off EQ for now. I could try to track maybe something. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and... God damn it. I don't have this vocal run in my head. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. Yeah, anyway. We just need to keep going, I think. Let's stay with this for now because our ears is already used to it. We could, well, might as well. I talk too much. Let's just work faster. Let's take this new dirty clip. It's a little bit longer. And then I'll re-enable all the processing we did so far. Then we take 5 so our ears can chill. Take many breaks. Take as many breaks as you need. Probably take more. Our brain usually has left the building way before we want to. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and... Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and... Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and okay, so far so good. So of course, this scratch vocal is not exactly stellar. That's not what it's about. If you can do better, that would be good, because, well, if you have something that is as close to what you will be delivering, finally, that will make the whole process better. So even when you do scratch vocals in a dry template, or when you're creating your template, try to perform as good as you can. So you have the most realistic performance and source material to work. Because if you sing and perform super half-assed, not knowing the lyrics, looking aside, bouncing about, you just create many unnecessary problems that shouldn't even be there in the first place. That are all problems that don't have to do with recording often, but they will translate. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. No compression. Let's put compression back on. I could even show you with here. Hello, 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 hello. And we see it's doing significant stuff. Not that you could see it on the gain reduction meter, but it has automatic makeup gain. We might not get reduction that much or at all, but we certainly do get an increase in level. I think I have to hop on the Reason forum and or read the manual and find out stuff, because I feel sometimes it does compression even though I see no lights coming, because it clearly does something, right? I can hear it even while speaking. Anyway, let's get back to what we have here and then take 5. And I'm a hush on the other channel, so I'm not polluting this with more noise. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. I wanna know what spring is like on Jupiter and fly me to the moon. Okay, so it's a little bit more clean, especially I think like even before the EQing, just the high pass filter did already so much, and that little dip in this lower mid-range, but 3 something 320, That is so boxy and it really sounds like we were somehow able to get into the walk-in and record there. It's like super, super boxy. Fly me to the moon, let me play. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Fly me. Okay, so far so good. What's next? Bring back compression. We did already. Master bus compressor is enabled. We did some mild EQing, nothing crazy. Some 3-4 dB in this area, some 3 dB for more presence, where we think we sound good, hopefully, and then boosting a little bit. For the higher frequencies, less is more. Pretty much always less is more, really. And also because we are at the very beginning of it all, keep in mind that all these processing is going to be layered. Leave yourself room. Get comfy with how you sound when stuff is kind of dry. Also, so you have a good reference point from what it is as is and where you want to go with that. That will help tremendously, I think. What's the time? Okay. And you know what? I think I'm getting hungry. And making music hungry isn't super great. I'll try to be back in like 30 or an hour or so. What I want to be doing then next is creating some sound effects and compare also a chain with sound effects, which is very practical for tracking. It is just less resource intense. And also we can use the effects on more channels and have a little bit more of a cohesive thing. But we also will be spending some time looking at parallel processing. We will be creating a parallel channel for the vocals. Like, let's do that right now. Also, one thing to note is if you are a Reason user, you probably know also it says it right there. Say we want to send out a parallel of this. If you do it like so, you will be sending the pre out. So no processing, right? Usually I don't want that. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Often I don't, unless I have some idea, because like I'm considering this is still a dry vocal. This is kind of like the minimum processing that I want. I want to have these vocals, none of that weird low frequency information. I don't want to have that boxiness. It already should sound somewhat more consistent and polished when I send that signal on, because if I do send it into a reverb or so, I want the syllables to be tamed already. I want it to be compressed already and whatnot. So you could either, I mean, all the ways lead to Rome, right? There's a million things you can do something, especially in Reason. It's ridiculous. often I'd use maybe the gain tool instead of select gain, because the gain tool does have the luxury of having extra out. So if I were to create a new mix channel, I could just take a split out from here, and I'm sorry for auto connecting it, then creates a stereo channel always. We want this to be mono for now. I could just send this now with all the processing right there. And now we have another channel where we can do that. Okay, but let's do that in the next stream. I'll say happy practice, happy creating, and just have fun. Catch you later. Peace.